JK Peace Review.
Alright, as you guys know, I like to run my builds with as little gear as possible to prove whether the build is good versus the gear being good. So to prove that, I'm going to take off as much gear as possible. I might need that extra resistances. So I have to keep these on because they have willpower and rage reduction. I'll try it without the helmet. I might put it on halfway through the run. But this gear is absolutely trash for this build, so that doesn't matter at all. I'm not running particularly good gems for this build, nothing in particular. It's going to mess up my rotations because I'm going to have no cooldown, I'm going to have no agility, so I'm just going to do 127, which is still really, really good gear, but obviously not ultra endgame. But if it was endgame, I'd have 100,000 HP, not 50,000. Alright. I was finally able to make an Infinity Blade build that was actually scalable and actually did the damage with Infinity Blade, not just dots. This was by far the most requested build, and it took absolutely forever to get right. This build has a very low gear requirement, but does scale much better with gear than a pure ailment build, which has a solid cap to it. It also has incredible movement speed through maps, lowering your clear times a significant amount. Its damage output, while not insane, is very high and unlikely to be nerfed. Its clear time is incredible. However, finding a tough with regen modifier at 187 will bring you down to a grinding halt. 172 and below, you will be able to fly through content, though 187 will require some gear. We have a nice clean rotation for an easy to play build, even though it uses all of our abilities consistently. Let's get into it. For ability points, we are already going to have a 100% chance to crit with this build, so we'll get into that later in the build as to why. So you can actually run this as 100% toughness, 100% agility, or a 50-50 split. If you want to play it safe, do 50-50. If you want to be a walking tank, do pure toughness. I like to run full agility once my gear is good enough that I have like 80,000 HP anyways, and it just makes you a speedy ninja that can fly through everything, and it's one of the only builds in the game that can actually run pure agility, so that's why I like to do that. But otherwise, a 50-50 split is going to be your safe bet. Alright, let's go over the modifiers and abilities. Go ahead and go back to the beginning of the video if you need to see a full screen version of the full ability and all of its modifiers. For Anomaly, we are converting Aether damage to lightning damage. You'll notice for most of these abilities, I am converting the damage. That's to make sure that we are getting as many different types of stacks as possible. Then we do enemies are damaged when pulled in by the vortex, and skills vortex pulls in enemies multiple times. This makes it so we're doubling the amount of times we hit enemies, which doubles the amount of ailment stacks we put on them. Then we do allows casting of 2 vortexes. So we're doubling the amount of stacks, and then we're casting it twice. So this skill is now doing 4 times the damage with 4 times the stacks. Alright, then now we need Lightbringer. The only ones you have to have on this one are leaves an area of effect that damages enemies upon landing. This is for Lightbringer. And converts base sacred damage to Aether damage. I like to do, I haven't maxed it out yet, but the ones I'm running as extras right now are inflict weakness and shock on enemies and grants resistances, but you could really do whatever you wanted for the extras. For Infinity Blades, you have to have converts Aether damage into shadow damage. Again, this is for Infinity Blades. And I also require gain willpower from critical strikes. We are going to have a 100% chance to critical strike with this build, so that means we are always gaining 25 willpower every time we hit, and it has a 10 willpower base, so we actually gain 35 willpower every time we hit an enemy, and our willpower cost is going to be below that, so we're actually gaining willpower every time we attack. And you also have to have increases the damage of this skill for each ailment stack inflicted on the target. Extras I tend to do applies debuff that increases damage taken by spells and grants a damage bonus to nearby allies. It's a nice little flat damage increase, so it is helpful. I still have an extra point left over that I haven't decided on. For Tear of Etheliel, I do converts fire. You have to have Frost of Fire damage. Again, this is for Tear. And alters the skill so that deals damage over time. You absolutely have to have those. What I like to add on top of that is increases area of effect and reduces willpower cost. For the last one I'm doing, increases the chance to inflict ailments on enemies, but I don't know, maybe do increased damage of ailments or cooldown. No, the cooldown wouldn't help your rotation, but yeah, that's about it for that one. For Plague Burst, you have to have leaves a poisonous cloud when an enemy or friendly summon dies, dealing damage over time. Again, this is for Plague Burst. And you have to have increase. Well, that's about it that you have to have. And yeah, increases explosion damage for each ailment stack monster has is also a have to have. Rest is I do increase area of effect. This is good, but not necessary because it's already a bigger AoE than everything else you have. Chance to summon monsters as allies. That sounds all right. Doesn't seem to do that much for me. And chance to explosion to frenzy enemies. That could be good because if the enemies are frenzied, they're not attacking you. So that's good. Aether Jump. We've gone over this in basically every build because I love this skill. And it allows the skill to be cast multiple times. With each recast, it increases willpower cost. It doubles your willpower cost each time. Right now, my willpower cost is at 20. So from 20 to 40 to 80 to 160 to 640, or 320 to 640, yada, yada, yada. I also get reduces cooldown, but I just got an ability that made it have 0 cooldown. So why would I get this? I get it because it reduces the amount of time it takes to reset back to the base cost of 20. So 20, 40, 60, or yada yada, and it'll drop back down to 20 quicker. I also do, so those are the ones that you have to have. Nice to haves are I then reduce the willpower cost even further. I grab both of those. There's 2 different ones, one at the top, one at the bottom, one for 1 point and one for 2 point. And then I do casting. This skill removes all crowd control effects and increases movement speed after completing a teleport. The movement speed buff lasts so long, that's why I love it. But you could do increases the attack speed and casting speed instead. It seems to give me about like a 2-3% increase. So, and again, that one lasts pretty long. So that is the abilities and modifiers. As for gear, my gear currently is absolute crap for this build, but what you 100% have to have is 2 things, is rage and willpower cost reduction. That tends to drop on shoulders and hands, and you have to have a heavy chest and heavy helm. I like to max out the resistances on these 2 so I can worry about everything else on the rest of the gear. It locks down the chest and helm, but everything else can run offense. So once you get some rage and willpower cost reduction, you get some good resistances on these. You're going to look for a little bit of cooldown reduction just so you can use anomaly every single pack rather than every other pack, because you'll clear it out quick enough at lower levels that you need that. And then you're going to be looking for flat damage to flat spell damage. You'll notice I don't even have flat spell damage. I have a little bit here. For Catalyst, you would want to have flat spell damage. You want 2 or 3 types of flat spell damage, preferably of the occult variety. So Shadow, I think Sacred, and Aether. And then for your weapon, it doesn't really matter what weapon you have. If you can get some spell damage on there, maybe some elemental status chance is good, or crit damage is good. Spell leech is good. A little bit of spell leech here is good. You really don't need that much, and you have 4% in your build already. Gem it out with spell damage, preferably occult damage. Like I said, this gear is not designed for this build quite yet, and you saw how well it was already doing, so you can imagine what we will achieve later on. But yeah, put Aether damage in here, or shadow damage, preferably shadow damage, so it lines up with the same type of damage as your Infinity Blades. Flat damage if you can. Maybe get a little bit of health here and there, and then occult damage positive. I don't think I have anything to show you with that. And then agility, as far as stats go, only agility and toughness is the only thing you need. You can get a little bit of wisdom if you want, but it's not going to help your DPS that quick. It just will speed up how quickly that DPS happens initially. So that's about it for gear. Looking at our talent tree here, our Gate of Fates. To start with, if you're leveling this build, the areas you have to get to is, I would grab a little bit of life leech, spell leech, get up here to the 100% crit, get up here to the stasis, And then I would probably come down through here and grab this one. And this is going to increase your damage 25% per ailment type. We're going to put at least 5 or 6 different ailment types. So you're looking at easily 125%, but up to 150, 175% damage increase on this. Our next one would be here for damage. This is going to be 210% damage increase. This one kind of acts as a flat damage increase on your spell, so this one actually tends to do more damage output, but it's not as consistent because you have to have killed things. This one will be consistently 210% damage. Then get your ailment stacks. In fact, you should have gotten these already. The second you got over here and the second you get over here, get your ailment stacks. Once you have those, you can come and get your resistances. You can finish these off, make it so you can crit and then get your crit damage over here, finish off some of the resistance nodes, maybe get your attack speed, maybe get your ailment speed, finish off your willpower nodes, and maybe start getting your cost reduction there. What makes this build work so well is, like I said, you have like 175-ish% damage here, 210% damage here, and we are getting ailment damage. And you're going to ask me, why are we getting ailment damage if we're mainly focusing on infinity blades and this is reducing the damage of infinity blades? Well, the way this works is that negative 15% you see there is applied to here. Late into the beta, they change it where your stats give you a damage increase. So you have 537%, 175%, 210%, let's call it 400, 900% damage. This actually just gets added onto that. So you're adding negative 15. So you go from 900% to 885%. So it's not as big of a DPS decrease as you think, but it increases your ailment damage significantly. So that's why we do that there. So we have that 900% damage increase, which is getting doubled with this right here. So that's 100 or 1800% damage increase. And then we're going to get crit damage. So this negative 30% is ignored because we're going to have 100% crit chance. So our crit damage is going to be roughly 300%. Depending on your gear, you get 400 or 500%. But starting 300% crit damage 100% of the time. That does not necessarily get extra damage. The crit. So the way right now it's thought of is, say you do 100 damage, this makes you do the same attack again. So it could do 96 damage, it could do 106 damage because you have a range. Basically, it mimics the attack again. We don't currently know, and I haven't tested if that attack could crit and do 200 damage. But basically, it doubles up the default attack of it. So we don't know if it can crit, but our crits are doing 300% damage, which is a 200% damage increase. So this 900, then 1800%. Well, that doesn't include it. So 1800%, then 900% is getting doubled. So this is 1800%, 900, 2700% plus 900. We have a 3600% damage increase on here, while still maintaining high resistances and high HP, high life leech, and high defense. So it is a great pretty clean. We don't really take any passive nodes that we don't like, that we don't want. So it's very, very clean, very few wasted nodes. A couple here that we don't love. Cooldown reduction is good, but yeah, spell damage is good. Those aren't amazing, but other than that, we have to get out from the main circle anyways, and our choice are health or yeah. So pretty clean, and that is the passive tree. Again, go back to the start of the video if you want to be able to pause and look at either the passive tree, and the links are going to be in the description, and the beginning of the video will also have the modifiers. I've been JK Peace, and actually real quick, everyone's been asking me, as well as doing an Infinity Blade build, people have been asking me to stream, so I started streaming on Twitch, just JK Peace, JKPEACE, Papa Echo Alpha Charlie Echo. Link in the description. I don't really have a schedule or anything. I'm just kind of showing how to make your own builds and some high level gameplay, if that's the type of thing that interests you. I also have hopped in a couple of games with viewers. So I've been JK Peace. Y'all have a good one.